Just a half a minute remaining. Looking that way. The pass is caught. Touchdown to Garcon.
That was the game winner. Kirk Cousins to Pierre Garcon with just seconds remaining. Washington with a come-from-behind victory at home over the Philadelphia Eagles. The win pulling the team even at 2 up, 2 down. Welcome back to News Talk, everybody. Offense, defense, special teams. Jay Gruden's squad clicked on all cylinders in that big win over the Eagles. Continuing our conversation now here on News Talk with Tom Threlkeld of the DC Pro Sports Report. You're smiling for a reason. This was a solid win. We don't know who the Eagles are.
Right.
I mean, they could be the bust of the NFC East, but this was as good as this team has looked in a while.
Yeah, I was asked a couple of times yesterday what I thought the win meant for Washington. And I'll tell you, my view is it's less important as a win. It's more important that they avoided a loss in this case. It really would have been terrible for the team. The heat under Jay Gruden's backside would have been ferocious because they would have fallen to 1-3. They'd have lost 3 out of the first 4 with 3 of those games at home, 0-2 in the division, 1-2 at home. And none of these teams are really great teams. You know, they haven't lost to a team they haven't played a team that's really great yet. And that's that would have been a very bad sign. They did something yesterday that they haven't done really in a long time, which is show some tenacity. They got hit with a couple of haymakers, these long touchdown passes where it was obvious Chris Culliver, their cornerback, their best cornerback, had no real business being out there, but because of other injuries in the secondary, he played anyway. And they fell behind 20-16. And look, in recent Washington history, by which I say at least 20 years, really a generation.
Call it the Dan Snyder era.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they don't come back from that. That's the end of the game, basically. They say we're done, thank you very much, and they collect their paychecks and they go home. That's not what happened. 15-play, 90-yard drive consumes almost 6 minutes of time.
Perfect. You couldn't dial it up better.
Yeah, they gave the Eagles virtually no time to come back. It was really a perfect, and that was a great catch by Pierre Garcon on that play. He was almost decapitated on that, and he really laid out. He was huge in that game. He left with an injury, came back for that drive, and made huge plays. He is a tough, really physical player, the epitome of what you want in a football player.
And what I saw in Kirk Cousins was a guy, it's like when someone you know who's a kid and then they're a teenager and all of a sudden you look up and they're a young adult. I thought you could see the evolution, the maturation of Kirk Cousins, what he brought to that moment with something he didn't have a year ago. I'm not sure he had it a month ago.
Right. Before the start of the regular season, we all know Jay Gruden said, this is Kirk's team. And I don't think many people took it very seriously. I think there were a lot of rolling eyeballs when those words were spoken. After yesterday, you can say that maybe was not merely a coach's wishful thinking, because I think it was wishful thinking at the time. That was a big-time drive by Kirk Cousins. And let me point out a couple of things. Washington had 25 first downs yesterday on a day when their running game really wasn't there. The Eagles are good against the run, and they stack the line because they know Washington doesn't have Deshaun Jackson. They're not a threat to go deep. So it really put their running game into a tight box. They didn't have it there. They got 18 first downs from Kirk Cousins throwing the ball. That's huge. And in that final drive, he threw for 4 first downs, 2 of them on third down. They were 9 of 17 on third down in that game, whereas Eagles were only 4 of 12. Those are big-time plays in pressure situations. He had some completions to not just to Garcon, but there were some really critical completions to younger players like Jamison Crowder, who caught first downs. A beautiful 22-yarder in triple coverage where Cousins really laid it in there. I mean, there was no business. That was a laser beam. But also some other plays in the short passing game to Crowder and Reed. Really smart decisions. It's an interesting offense. It's all short passing without Deshaun Jackson in there. And you saw that in their drives, their scoring drives yesterday. 10 plays, 9 plays, 15 plays. All their drives are long because they can't strike in 3 or 4 plays without their speedster, Deshaun Jackson.
And you mentioned the challenges that the team is facing right now. They may be understaffed and in the defensive secondary, injuries only making the situation worse. But I was impressed with what I saw with the pass rush. Bradford was under duress a lot, particularly when it mattered most.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we finally saw it. Look, they made a high draft pick out of Ryan Kerrigan. He was a first-round pick in 2011, and they just gave him a huge contract extension. They used high second-round picks on outside linebackers Trent Murphy and Preston Smith. Both of them had sacks yesterday. And Chris Baker, defensive lineman, came through with 2 sacks. One of them was basically a coverage sack. But that he had help from Stephen Paya and Terrence Knight, and 2 new defensive linemen who were brought in to help free up guys like Chris Baker. So Washington has made a lot of investments in trying to get to the quarterback. And one of the frustrations that they've had is they haven't really had any success in getting to it occasionally, apart from Ryan Kerrigan. Yesterday they had it. The defense is a lot different. When there's a pass rush there, their banged up secondary doesn't look so terrible. And a guy like Bradford isn't good enough. You know, you get that kind of pass rush against Aaron Rodgers, he can figure something out. Bradford can't. He was helpless when they got the rush.
We only have a minute left. Washington goes to Atlanta next. Yeah. Clearly the best team they've played so far this year.
Right.
We'll see what happens. The reality now is they're 2-2. They're tied for first in a division that's not a great division. It feels pretty wide open, even though you don't want to get ahead of yourselves based on one win.
That's right. The Eagles really do look lost. I mean, you can never know what they're going to do offensively. They disappear for 2-3 quarters at a time. Cowboys lost in overtime last night. The Giants, who beat Washington, won very impressively. But it's a wide open division. There's no doubt about it. It wouldn't surprise me if someone wins that division with 9-7 or 10-6, which means a team like Washington is going to be in it if they get more play like this from Kirk Cousins.
And of course, Jackson comes back at some point.
That's right. Deshaun Jackson will be back next week or the week after. These next 2 games are going to be huge. The Falcons are 4-0, and they have Julio Jones, the best receiver in the game. And then after that, the New York Jets, who are 3-1. 7-1 over the next 2 weeks. Big games. We'll find out something about Washington.
And I know that a learned member of your household thinks the Giants. Don't sleep on the Giants.
I agree with that learned member.
Tom Falco to the DC Pro Sports Report. Always great having you here. Thank you so much. Back with the program note after this.